Hi, my name's Jeralyn Mackenzie and I work in the HR team of Highlands and Islands Enterprise, based at its Inverness offices at Lochran on Inverness campus. One of the key focuses of my day-to-day role in HR is that of health and well-being, and I'm delighted to have been given the opportunity to do this little video focusing on what is a particularly important focus at the moment whilst we're all trying to cope with COVID-19. There's no denying it, these are very, very challenging times, in fact unprecedented I would argue in all of our lifetimes, and of course we don't know for how much longer lockdown is going to go on for. Many of us are now remote working, working from home, and that's a whole new normal for many of us, including myself. Fortunately, technology is such that, we're managing to do it very successfully. But there's absolutely no doubt that remote working brings different challenges to those that we face day to day in the office. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about remote home working. I'm also going to take a few moments just to focus on how to make the most of our time outside work, our downtime, if you like, in this new normal. Who would have thought this time last year that terms such as social distancing, self-isolation and lockdown would be part of our everyday parlance? We're bombarded in the news with these terms all of the time, and I think we have to try and just cope as best we can given the circumstances. So I shall start off with a little bit about remote home working. In terms of home working, the ideal is to have a specific area that you use for the purpose. However, I'm conscious that all of our home environments are quite different and that not everyone has the luxury of being able to use a spare room for a little home office. However, if possible, I think it's good just to have a dedicated space in a particular room so you have that regular base from which to work. It's also, I think, important, notwithstanding the fact that one's not working in the office environment, to still try and maintain some sort of routine. It's good to start, if you can, at your usual work time, and also to plan and prioritise what you hope to achieve during the course of the working day. I think flexibility is important here because, again, I'm conscious everyone's circumstances can be different. Some people might be able to just do their own thing if they're living their own. Others might have to sort of factor in having young children at home from school. They might have a partner or someone else in the house who also requires to work from home. So, one has to work around other people on occasion as well. But I think, sticking to some sort of routine is important. Not necessarily your normal work pattern. If perhaps you don't work so much in the afternoon and work instead in the evening, that's absolutely fine. But also I think it's important to try and have a set finish time, because working from home, it's all too easy just to keep working on, to keep checking emails well into the evening, perhaps even logging on at weekends. And unless there's something really urgent needing attention, I think it's important to discipline oneself to try and stick as much as possible to one's normal working hours, if you like. It's also important, I think, to factor in breaks, just as one would do naturally in the office environment. I would suggest perhaps at least a 10-minute break in the morning, 10-minute break in the afternoon, and certainly take time off during the middle of the day for a lunch break. It's not only the fact that one needs to eat, but it's also important, I think, to get away from screens. I'll share a little tip on good use of screens, which some of you may well be familiar, so apologies if you already know this one. But I'm a great believer in what's known as the 20-20-20 rule. That means every 20 minutes, for at least 20 seconds, look at an object at least 20 feet away. That lets your eyes refocus, because eyes are at rest in the distance, whereas if you're sitting at screens all day, it does prove quite a strain your eyes get quite dry as well. Another very basic tip is keep hydrating, water being the best thing for that. I've arguably left probably one of the key things about home working to the end, and that's all about communication. Just because, we're away from our work colleagues, we're keeping in touch with them virtually, and there are so many ways with modern technology that one can actually do that. In my own team, in the HR team, we have a daily link up at 9:30 each morning via Skype. That works really, really well. We usually just put on audio, but we were very daring the other day and we actually put on our cameras. A bit like the politicians you see on TV broadcasting from home. Everyone's looking at everybody's background, trying to work out what sort of room they are sort of linking up from. So that helps, and it enables people just to share how they are doing generally, not just in the work context, but also a chance to exchange information on what work priorities are coming up, who's doing what, who can perhaps help with what, and so on. And I think I would argue it's good to do that at least on a daily basis. Just because we're isolated, in inverted commas, from our colleagues, we don't want to feel isolated. And as I say, let's use technology to best effect. Obviously, we've all got email as well, and obviously one can phone via Skype and things like that. So those are just a few key pointers that I think are worth sharing with you on the whole issue of home/remote working. I'm now going to take a few minutes just to focus on how to maximise your non-work or your downtime. One of the things that the government has told us we're all still able to do during this lockdown is to take exercise, whether that's via a walk, a cycle or a run. And I think it's important once a day to actually do that. Fresh air is very therapeutic, and it helps you feel that you're maintaining at least a little bit of normality in these very challenging times. It's also good to use this extra free time we have at home, perhaps to pick up a hobby that we used to enjoy and have let lapsed. Perhaps you've always wanted to learn Spanish. Other languages are available, of course, but there's lots of online learning possibilities available as well. Looking around my own neighbourhood, I see lots of people have suddenly developed a great enthusiasm for gardening. And I suppose one plus point about the timing of all this is at least we're going into the summer months. The clocks have changed, we've got brighter evenings. Think how much worse it would have been if it had been the other way around. End of October, the clocks had just gone, back for the winter. And that would have been even more difficult, I think, for people to cope with. So it's important just to sort of use one's time usefully. Also reconnect perhaps with perhaps some family members you haven't been in touch with for a while, or friends from school, university, or earlier in life that you have lost track of. And there are so many ways to do that. Skype, FaceTime. I use FaceTime a lot to my favourite cousin in Canada, for example. A lot of people have been setting up WhatsApp groups. I know my own team have set a very useful WhatsApp group up. So it's good, again, going back to what I said earlier in this video, even though we might feel isolated, being confined to barracks for the next little while, as it were, we don't want to feel isolated. Well, there's lots of things we can do at our own hand to actually improve that situation. Another tip I would put forward is the fact that we want to sort of try and plan ahead for things like food shopping, for the essentials. And personally, I think it's good perhaps to do one big shopping trip and get as much in as possible rather than a lot of little shopping trips, because that minimises, your potential risk to the virus when you're out and about, if you like. For people that are on regular medication, again, very important to make sure that you order that in plenty of time so you can pick up from the pharmacy, or in a lot of cases, pharmacies will actually deliver for you. The other thing that's very, very important is sleep. It's actually been proven that if you don't get enough sleep, you lower your immune system, and that in turn can leave you feeling less able to cope with demands being put on you, and that in turn increases anxiety. Going back to the overall health theme which underpins all of what I'm saying at the moment, health obviously is not just physical health. It also comprises mental health and emotional health. And if one of those three strands is out of kilter, it inevitably impacts on at least one, or indeed both, of the others. So, it's trying to sort of maintain healthy habits, good diet and so on, good hydration, as I've mentioned before. And I suppose just use this opportunity to do things that otherwise we perhaps wouldn't have done. Even on a more mundane basis, a lot of people I think are decluttering and so on. And again, it's trying to use the time, keep occupied. I think that is the secret, and as I say, helps us get through the next few weeks. Just to conclude now, I do hope what I've covered in the last few minutes has been useful and informative. We are, as I've said earlier on, in quite unprecedented times, and of course the lockdown and everything happened quite quickly, so we didn't really get a lot of time to get our head round what it was going to be like, because it's a new experience for all of us. The media, of course, all you hear in the news is coronavirus, COVID-19. And one thing I have tried to do is not watch every single news bulletin that comes up, because I think you can get too much information. Some of it can sometimes be contradictory and can be quite worrying. We're on a journey and we're making progress along the journey. There will be light at the end of the tunnel. And I think in the meantime, we need to be there for each other, both in terms of our work colleagues, our friends, the wider family circle, and that nobody should feel on their own. Especially for home working, I think the various things I've set out are things that help aid that whole scenario. So I will just end there. Thank you very much indeed for watching this video, and I shall finally say, stay safe and keep well.